The shuttle docked at Station Orion 7 with a soft hiss. Park grabbed her small bag and walked through the airlock into the busy terminal. Aliens of every shape and size moved around her. Some had scales, some had fur, some had too many eyes or not enough limbs, kept her face calm and followed the signs toward the academy. She had traveled for 3 weeks to get here. 3 weeks in a small cabin on a cargo ship, eating dried food and reading her textbooks. The Galactic Academy was supposed to be the best school in this sector of space. Students from 100 different worlds came here to learn. And now, for the first time in the Academy's history, they had accepted a human. The station was massive. It floated in the empty space between star systems, a city made of metal and glass. Through the wide windows, could see ships coming and going like fireflies in the dark. She stopped for a moment to look. She had grown up in the mountains of Korea, where the stars were bright and close, but she had never imagined she would live among them. A small robot approached her and beeped. It displayed a map on its screen, showing her the way to the Academy's registration office, thanked it and continued walking. The Academy building was beautiful. High ceilings, clean floors, and artwork from distant worlds hanging on the walls. Students in uniforms moved through the hallways, talking in languages as translator Chip turned into Korean in her ear. Some of them stopped to stare at her. She pretended not to notice. At the registration desk, a blue-skinned alien with 4 arms looked at her documents and made a surprised sound. "Human," the alien said. "From Earth, Class 9. "Yes," said simply. The alien studied her for a long moment. Was not tall. She was not muscular. She looked like an ordinary young woman with black hair tied back and a calm expression on her face. The alien seemed confused, as if expecting something more impressive. "Your dormitory is in Building 7, the alien finally said, handing her a, "Classes start tomorrow. Do not cause trouble." Took the card and walked away. Her room was small but comfortable. A bed, a desk, a window looking out at the stars. She unpacked her few belongings and sat on the bed. For a moment she let herself feel the strangeness of it all. She was millions of kilometers from home. She was the only human in a school full of aliens. She was completely alone. But had been alone before. She had survived worse than loneliness. The next morning, she put on her new uniform and went to her first class, Xenobiology, the study of life forms from different planets. The classroom was large, with seats arranged in a half-circle facing the teacher's platform. Chose a seat in the back corner and sat down quietly. The other students ignored her at first. They were busy with their own conversations. But as the room filled up, she noticed more and more eyes turning in her direction. Whispers spread like ripples in water. "That's the human. From the... She doesn't look dangerous. They never do." Kept her eyes on her tablet and said nothing. The teacher arrived, a tall creature with gray skin and a long neck. The class began and took careful notes. She understood most of the material. Earth schools had taught her well, but there were gaps in her knowledge about galactic biology. She would need to study hard. During the break between classes, a voice spoke beside her. "You're the new human, right?" Looked up, a young man stood next to her desk. He had black hair and Asian features, human features. He smiled nervously. "I'm Ho," he said. "I'm from the Korean community on the station. There are about 50 of us here, traders, engineers, that kind of thing. I was born on Earth, but my family moved here when I was young." "Park," she replied. "Nice to meet you." Ho sat down in the empty seat next to her. "I wanted to warn you about some things. This school has its own rules, unofficial ones. The teachers don't see everything." "What do you mean?" Ho lowered his voice. "There's a group of students. They're from a powerful family. Their species are hunters, predators. They think they're better than everyone else." He paused. "Some students have disappeared this year. The administration says they transferred to other schools, but nobody believes that." Listened carefully, What do you think happened to them? I think they took them. Their family runs some kind of illegal operation, collecting rare species, selling them. Ho shook his head. I can't prove anything, but I wanted you to know. Humans are rare out here. That makes you valuable. Be careful. Nodded slowly. Thank you for telling me. Ho seemed relieved that she took his warning seriously. If you need anything, let me know. Us humans have to stick together out here. He smiled and left to join his friends on the other side of the room. Watched him go. He seemed like a good person. Kind. Worried about others. She appreciated that. But she also knew that kindness would not protect her. Not in a place like this. After classes ended, walked through the station alone. She memorized the layout. The main corridors. The side passages. The maintenance tunnels that most students never noticed. She found the security cameras and noted their positions. She checked which doors were locked and which ones were not. She did all of this quietly without drawing attention. She looked like a new student exploring her new home, nothing suspicious. That night she sat by her window and looked at the stars. She thought about her grandmother back on Earth. The old woman had raised her after her parents died. She had taught everything she knew, how to track animals, how to survive in the wilderness, how to stay calm when everything around you was trying to kill you. Earth is a hard world, her grandmother used to say. It makes hard people. That is our strength. That is our secret. Remembered those words now. She was far from the mountains she loved, far from the forests and rivers where she had learned to survive. But the lessons remained. They were part of her. They always would be. Somewhere on the station, there were predators who thought they were at the top of the food chain. They looked at and saw prey. A small, weak human girl from a primitive planet. They had no idea what they were looking at. Closed her eyes and slept peacefully. Whatever was coming, she would be ready. 3 weeks passed, settled into the rhythm of academy life. She attended her classes, completed her assignments, and ate her meals alone in the corner of the cafeteria. She spoke only when spoken to. She drew no attention to herself. To most of the other students, she was invisible, just another quiet girl who kept to herself. But someone was watching her. Was the largest in the academy. His scales were silver, bright and polished like armor. His eyes were yellow with black slits in the center, and they moved constantly, tracking everything around him. He sat in the center of the cafeteria every day, surrounded by his 4 closest companions. Other students gave them space. Even the teachers seemed careful around them. There were predators. Their planet was covered in jungles where only the strongest survived. For thousands of years, they had hunted everything that moved. When they joined the galactic community, they brought their hunting traditions with them. His family was one of the most powerful. They ran a private hunting operation that served wealthy clients across the galaxy. They provided rare creatures from rare worlds. The rarer the creature, the higher the price. Humans were very rare. Had noticed on her first day. He watched her the way a hunter watches an animal at a watering hole, patient, curious, hungry. At first he thought she was weak. She was small and quiet. She never raised her voice or showed her teeth. She seemed like easy prey. But as the weeks passed, something bothered him, something he could not explain. It was the way she moved, smooth and efficient with no wasted energy. When she walked, her feet made almost no sound. When she turned her head, her eyes had already moved first. These were small things, things that most people would never notice, but was a hunter. He noticed everything. One day, he decided to test her. He sent one of his companions to bump into her in the hallway. It was supposed to look like an accident. There was twice her size, and he hit her hard enough to knock a normal person to the ground. But did not fall. She shifted her weight at the exact moment of impact, absorbing the force and staying on her feet. She looked up at them with calm eyes. No fear, no anger, just a quiet, steady gaze that lasted for 2 heartbeats. Then she picked up the tablet she had dropped, said, "Excuse me," in a polite voice and walked away. Watched this from across the hallway. His yellow eyes narrowed. That reaction was not normal. That was not how prey behaved. That was how a predator behaved when it did not want to reveal itself. He wanted her even more now. That evening, another student disappeared. A small alien from a water world, quiet and friendless. The administration announced that she had transferred to a school closer to her home planet. No one questioned it. No one ever questioned it. Ho found in the library the next day. He sat down across from her, his face worried. "Did you hear about the girl?" he asked quietly. Nodded. "I heard. That's the fourth one this semester." Ho looked around to make sure no one was listening. Always the same type, alone, no powerful friends, no family nearby. He paused. "Like you." "Like me," agreed. "You need to be more careful. Join some clubs, make friends, make yourself harder to take." Ho leaned forward. "They only hunt easy prey. If you're not easy, they'll leave you alone." Considered his words. He was trying to help her. He genuinely cared about her safety, but he did not understand. Making friends would not save her. Joining clubs would not save her. The had already noticed her. She had seen it in his eyes every time he looked at her across the cafeteria. He had chosen her. It was only a matter of time. "Thank you for the advice," she said. "I will think about it." Ho did not look satisfied, but he let the matter drop. They talked about their classes for a while, and then he left for his next lecture. Stayed in the library, reading a book about the station's engineering systems. The days continued. His attention became more obvious. He started sitting closer to her in the classes they shared. His companions would stand in the hallways she used, watching her pass. They were not even trying to hide it anymore. They were making her nervous on purpose. They wanted her to panic, to run, to make a mistake. Did none of those things. She went to class, she did her work, she ate her meals. She walked the same routes at the same times, she gave them nothing. But she was preparing. Every night she reviewed the information she had gathered, the camera locations, the maintenance schedules, the empty corridors where no one went. She studied the species in her xenobiology textbooks. She learned their weaknesses. Their joints bent differently than human joints. Their scales were strong on the front but thinner on the sides and back. Their eyes were sensitive to bright light. She memorized everything. On the last day of the week, finally made his move. Was leaving her final class when she saw them waiting for her. Stood at the far end of the corridor, blocking the main path. His 4 hunters spread out behind him, their yellow eyes fixed on her. The hallway was empty. The other students had already left. The cameras in this section were old and had blind spots that had identified weeks ago. This was the moment she had known was coming. Smiled, showing his sharp teeth. "Human," he said, "you have been chosen. You should feel honored. My father's clients will pay very well for you." Stopped walking. She set her bag on the ground slowly. "I'm not going with you," she said. They laughed, all 5 of them. It was a harsh sound like rocks scraping together. They were so confident, so certain of their power. They had hunted creatures across 100 worlds. They had never met anything they could not catch. "You do not have a choice," said. "You are alone, you are weak, you are prey, accept your fate." Looked at them, 5 hunters, 5 predators from a species that had evolved to kill. They were bigger than her, faster than her, stronger than her. But they had never hunted a human before. They had never met something from a class 9. His grandmother had taught her many things, but the most important lesson was simple. On Earth, everything is trying to kill you. The weather, the animals, the insects, the diseases, even the plants. Humans survived not because they were the biggest or the fastest. They survived because they were the most dangerous thing on the planet. They did not know this. They were about to learn. The first hunter attacked without warning. He was fast. His legs pushed off the metal floor with explosive power, and his claws came out, sharp and curved like knives. He expected to freeze. He expected her to scream. He expected easy prey. Was already moving. She stepped to the side at the last moment, just far enough for his claws to miss her face by centimeters. As he passed, she grabbed his arm and used his own speed against him. Her body twisted, her feet planted. His momentum carried him forward and she pulled down hard. His head hit the metal wall with a sound like a hammer striking stone. The impact cracked his skull. He dropped to the floor and did not move again. 2 seconds had passed. The other hunters froze. They stared at their fallen companion. They had seen him take down creatures 3 times his size. They had watched him kill with casual efficiency. And now he was on the ground with blood pooling under his head, killed by a small human girl who weighed less than half of what he did. His yellow eyes went wide. Something cold moved through his chest, something he had not felt in years. Fear. But his hunters were trained. They recovered quickly. The second and third attacked together, coming at from both sides. They would trap her between them. They would use their size and their claws to tear her apart. Did not wait for them. She grabbed something from the wall, a maintenance tool, a heavy metal wrench used for station repairs. It was not a weapon. It was not designed to kill, but in his hands everything was a weapon. She swung low and caught the second hunter in the knee. The joint shattered. He screamed and fell, grabbing his ruined leg. Before he could recover, was past him, moving toward the third hunter. He swung at her with his claws. She ducked under his arm and drove the wrench into his throat. The scales there were thin. The metal punched through, crushing his windpipe. He grabbed his neck with both hands, choking on his own blood. His eyes were full of shock. He could not believe what was happening. He was still standing when hit him again, this time in the temple. He fell beside his companions. The second hunter was trying to crawl away, dragging his broken leg behind him, walked up to him calmly. He looked up at her, and for the first time in his life, he understood what prey felt like. He understood the terror of being hunted by something you could not stop. "Please," he said in his own language. The translator in his ear made the word clear. She did not answer. Her grandmother had taught her that mercy was a luxury. When something was trying to kill you, you did not stop until the threat was gone. You did not give your enemy a chance to recover. You finished what you started. The wrench came down one more time. The hunter stopped moving. 4 seconds, 4 bodies. The corridor was quiet except for the hum of the station's systems and steady breathing. The fourth hunter ran. He did not attack. He did not even look back. He just turned and sprinted toward the far end of the corridor, his claws clicking against the metal floor. He was fast, faster than any human could run. He would escape. He would warn the others. He would bring more hunters. Through the wrench. It spun through the air, end over end, and struck the back of his head with terrible force. He stumbled, crashed into the wall, and fell. Before he could get up was on him. She grabbed his head with both hands and twisted sharply. There was a crack. His body went limp. She stood up slowly and turned to face the last hunter. He had not moved during the entire fight. He stood at the end of the corridor, his silver scales gleaming under the lights. His yellow eyes were fixed on. His mouth was slightly open. He could not believe what he had just witnessed. 8 seconds, 4 of his best hunters dead. "What are you?" he whispered. Picked up the wrench from the floor. Blood dripped from its end. Her uniform was stained red, but her face was calm. Her breathing was barely faster than normal. She looked at the same way she looked at everyone else. Quiet, patient, unafraid. "I am human," she said simply. "From Earth, a Class 9. Finally understood what that meant. His planet was dangerous. His species were predators. They had evolved to be the most deadly creatures in their jungles, but their planet was Class 5. Earth was Class 9. The gap between those numbers was not small. It was enormous. On Earth, the gravity was crushing. The weather was violent. The diseases were countless. Every animal, every insect, every plant was locked in an endless war for survival. Humans had no claws, no scales, no venom. They should have died out millions of years ago. But they did not die. They became something worse. They became the most successful predators their planet had ever seen. They hunted everything. They killed everything. They conquered their entire world not through strength or speed, but through intelligence, endurance, and an absolute refusal to give up. Had thought he was the hunter. He was wrong. He attacked with the desperation of a cornered animal. All pretense of control was gone. He was fighting for his life now. He swung his claws at her face, at her chest, at her legs. He was faster than the others, stronger. He had trained since birth, but was not trying to match his speed. She was reading his movements. She saw the way his weight shifted before each attack. She saw the tension in his muscles. She knew where he would strike before he struck. She dodged, she blocked, she waited. When the opening came, she took it. Her hand shot out and grabbed his wrist. She twisted hard. The bones broke, screamed. Before he could react, she hit his elbow from the wrong direction. More bones broke. His arm hung useless at his side. She did the same to his other arm. Then his legs lay on the floor, broken and helpless. He looked up with eyes full of pain and terror. He tried to speak, but only a wet sound came from his throat. Knelt beside him. She looked into his yellow eyes and he saw nothing there. No anger, no hatred, no satisfaction, just the calm, steady focus of a predator completing its work. "Your father," she said quietly, "should have taught you to research your prey." She finished it quickly. That was the one mercy she gave him. Then she stood up and looked at the corridor around her. 5 bodies, blood on the walls, blood on the floor, blood on her hands and her clothes and her face. She checked her. The next maintenance cycle would bring workers through here in 23 minutes. She had work to do, moved quickly but carefully. Panic was the enemy now. Panic led to mistakes. Mistakes led to evidence. Evidence led to questions she did not want to answer. So she pushed every emotion down, locked it away in a box deep inside her mind, and focused on the task in front of her. First, the cameras. She walked to the nearest maintenance panel and opened it with a tool from the emergency kit on the wall. Inside was a mess of wires and circuits that would confuse most people, but had spent weeks studying the station's systems. She knew exactly which wires controlled the surveillance feeds for this corridor. She did not cut them. Cutting would trigger an alert. Instead, she connected a small device she had built from spare parts. The device was simple. It recorded a loop of the empty corridor and fed it into the camera system. Anyone watching the security monitors would see nothing unusual, just an empty hallway, quiet and peaceful. She set the loop to cover the past hour. Then she closed the panel and moved on. Second, the bodies. The industrial recycling system was located 2 corridors away. Every station had one. It broke down waste materials into basic elements for reuse. Metal, plastic, organic matter. The system did not care what it processed. It just consumed everything fed into it. The main recyclers had sensors to detect large masses. They were designed to prevent accidents. If someone fell in, the machine would stop. But the maintenance tunnels had smaller auxiliary processors. These were used for biological waste from the medical bay and food waste from the cafeteria. They had no safety sensors. They just processed whatever came through. Dragged the first body into the maintenance tunnel. She worked silently, using the strength her grandmother had built in her through years of hard training. Mountain climbing, carrying water, chopping wood. Her body was small, but it was dense with muscle that did not show on the surface. She fed the body into the processor piece by piece. It was ugly work, necessary work. She did not let herself think about what she was doing. She just focused on each step. Cut, carry, process, repeat. They were large, but the processor was hungry. Within 10 minutes, the first hunter was gone. Nothing left, not even bones. She went back for the second body, then the third, then the fourth. Was the hardest. Not because he was the heaviest, but because of what he represented. He had been the leader, the one who made the decision to hunt her, the one who thought she was prey. Looked at his face before she started. His yellow eyes were still open, frozen in an expression of disbelief. Even in death, he seemed unable to accept what had happened. "You chose wrong," she told him quietly. Then she got to work. Third, the blood. The corridor was a mess. Red stains on the floor, splashes on the walls, drops leading in every direction. A forensic team could read this scene like a story. They could count the victims. They could determine the method of death. They could find DNA. Opened the maintenance closet and found what she needed. Industrial cleaning solution. Strong enough to dissolve organic material. Strong enough to destroy any trace of what had happened. She sprayed everything. The floors, the walls, the corners where blood had pooled. She scrubbed until her arms ached. She rinsed with water from the emergency systems. Then she sprayed again and scrubbed again. The chemicals burned her hands, but she did not stop. Pain was temporary. Evidence was forever. When she finished, the corridor was cleaner than it had ever been. The metal gleamed. The air smelled of artificial citrus from the cleaning solution. There was nothing left to find. Fourth, the electronics. Each had carried a personal communicator. These devices tracked their locations and recorded their activities. If anyone searched for them, the communicators would lead directly to this corridor. Collected all 5 devices and examined them carefully. She could not simply destroy them. That would look suspicious. Instead, she needed to make them tell a different story. She accessed the location logs using codes she had memorized during her research. Then she edited the records. According to the new data, and his hunters had left the academy building at the normal time. They had walked to the docking bay. They had boarded a private shuttle and departed the station. The shuttle was real. It belonged to a trading company that had no obvious connection to his family, had identified it weeks ago as part of her preparation. It was scheduled to leave tonight, heading toward the outer systems. Once it was gone, there would be no way to verify whether they were actually aboard. She programmed the communicators to continue transmitting normal data for the next few hours. Then she placed them in an outgoing cargo container bound for the same shuttle. The devices would travel with the ship and eventually stop working somewhere in deep space. By then, no one would care. Fifth, herself. Looked down at her uniform. It was ruined. Blood had soaked through the fabric in several places. Even after washing, traces would remain. She could not keep these clothes. She changed into a spare uniform she kept in her locker for emergencies. The bloody clothes went into the same processor that had consumed the bodies. She watched them disappear and felt nothing. Her skin still had blood on it. Some had dried in her hair and under her fingernails. She walked to the nearest bathroom and washed thoroughly. The hot water turned pink as it swirled down the drain. She scrubbed until her skin was red and raw. When she looked in the mirror, a normal girl looked back at her. A quiet student with tired eyes and wet hair. Nothing special, nothing dangerous. Just another young woman at the end of a long day. Checked her. 14 minutes had passed since the last hunter fell. She had 9 minutes before the maintenance workers arrived. She walked back to the corridor one final time. She looked at every surface, every corner, every shadow. She searched for anything she might have missed. A single scale, a drop of blood, a scratch on the wall. She found nothing. The corridor was perfect, empty, innocent. Picked up her bag from where she had left it. She walked back to her dormitory using a different route than usual, avoiding the main hallways. She passed a few other students along the way. None of them looked at her twice. In her room, she showered again. She put on comfortable clothes. She sat at her desk and opened her tablet. She had homework due tomorrow. A report on comparative anatomy across different species. She had already finished most of it, but there were a few sections that needed revision. Worked on her report for an hour. Then she ate a small dinner from the supplies in her room. Then she brushed her teeth and got into bed. The stars outside her window were beautiful, cold and distant and eternal. They did not care what happened on the station below. They just shone as they always had, as they always would. Closed her eyes. She was asleep within minutes. Morning came to Station Orion 7 the same way it always did. The lights in the corridors slowly brightened to simulate sunrise. The cafeteria opened its doors. Students crawled out of their beds and prepared for another day of classes. Woke at her usual time. She exercised in her room for 30 minutes. Stretches, push-ups, sit-ups. The same routine she had followed since childhood. Then she showered, dressed in her academy uniform, and went to breakfast. The cafeteria was busy. Students filled the tables, eating and talking and laughing, got her food and sat in her usual corner. She ate slowly, watching the room without seeming to watch. The first rumor reached her within an hour. "Did you hear?" a girl at the next table whispered to her friend. "And his gang are gone. They left the station last night." "Gone?" the friend sounded surprised. "Where?" "Nobody knows. Some emergency with his family maybe, or a hunting trip, you know how they are." The conversation moved on to other topics, finished her breakfast and went to class. By midday, the whole academy was talking about it, and his 4 closest companions had vanished. They were not in their rooms. They were not in class. Their communicators were offline. The administration had no information about where they had gone. Some students thought it was a joke, loved to make dramatic exits. He would probably return in a few days with some wild story about a hunt in the outer systems. Others were not so sure. The timing was strange. The silence was strange. Never went anywhere without telling everyone about it. He loved attention too much. The rumors grew and changed as the day went on. Maybe they had been called home by their family. Maybe they had gotten into trouble with station security. Maybe they had finally crossed the wrong person. No one suspected the quiet human girl who sat alone in the back of every classroom. In the afternoon, saw 2 station security officers walking through the hallways. They stopped students and asked questions. Had anyone seen? Had anyone noticed anything unusual last night? When they reached, she answered politely. No, she had not seen them. No, she did not know anything. Yes, she had been in her room all evening doing homework. The officers thanked her and moved on. They did not give her a second look. That evening, Ho found her in the library again. He sat down across from her with a strange expression on his face, half worried, half curious. "You heard about them?" he asked. Looked up from her book. Everyone heard about them. "They're really gone." The station scanned for their communicators. Last signal came from a cargo shuttle that left for the outer systems last night. Nobody knows why they would be on that ship. "Strange," said. Ho studied her face. "You don't seem very surprised." "Should I be?" He opened his mouth to say something, then closed it. He looked at her for a long moment, met his eyes calmly. There was nothing to see, nothing to read, just the same quiet expression she always wore. "I guess not," Ho finally said. "The universe is full of dangers. You said that yourself." "I did." They sat in silence for a while. Ho seemed to be thinking hard about something, waited patiently. "The students who disappeared before," he said slowly, "do you think they were really transfers?" "What do you think?" Ho shook his head. "I think they're dead. I think his hunters took them and sold them to whoever paid the most. I think the administration knows and does nothing because the family has too much power." Said nothing. "But now the hunters are gone," Ho continued, "and I can't help wondering if maybe justice found them somehow, if maybe someone finally decided to fight back." He looked at again. His eyes were serious, questioning. "If someone did," said softly, "would that be wrong?" Ho thought about it. The disappeared students, the families who would never know what happened to their children, the predators who walked through the academy like kings, taking whatever they wanted. "No," he said finally. "No, I don't think it would be wrong." Smiled slightly, just a small curve of her lips there and gone in a moment. "Then perhaps you have your answer." She returned to her book. Ho sat with her for a while longer, then left to meet his friends for dinner. He did not ask any more questions. The investigation continued for 2 weeks. Family was powerful, and they demanded answers. They sent their own investigators to the station. They questioned students and teachers. They reviewed security footage and communication logs. They found nothing. The security footage showed 5 walking to the docking bay and boarding a cargo shuttle. The shuttle logs confirmed their departure. The cargo ship's captain had no record of additional passengers, but he was an old smuggler who knew better than to keep accurate records. The trail went cold in the outer systems. Ships disappeared out there all the time. Pirates, accidents, bad navigation. The galaxy was a dangerous place. Eventually, the investigation ended. The official conclusion was that and his companions had left on personal business and failed to return, probably the victims of some misfortune in deep space. Case closed. Life at the academy returned to normal. New social groups formed to fill the vacuum left by the new hierarchies emerged, but something had changed. Students looked at humans differently now. Not with fear exactly, but with a new kind of attention, a new kind of respect. Earth was humans had survived there for millions of years. They looked weak and small, but looks could be deceiving. Sometimes in the cafeteria would feel eyes on her. She would look up and catch someone staring. They would quickly look away, pretending they had not been watching her. She never said anything. She just continued eating her meals, attending her classes, doing her homework, the same quiet girl she had always been. But the whispers followed her now. "That's the human." From the "Be careful around her. You never know what they're capable of." Did not mind the whispers. Let them wonder. Let them guess. Let them learn what her grandmother had taught her long ago. Humans were not prey. They never had been. On her last night before the semester break, sat by her window and looked at the stars. She thought about the hunters who had tried to take her. She thought about the students they had taken before. She thought about the long journey home to Earth, where her grandmother waited in the mountains. She wondered if she would miss this place, the station, the academy, the strange aliens who filled its halls. Maybe a little. It had been interesting at least. But she was ready to go home, ready to return to the forests and rivers and mountains that had made her who she was, ready to breathe real air and feel real soil beneath her feet. Earth was a hard world, a dangerous world. But it was her world, and she was proud of it. Closed her eyes and smiled. The stars continued to shine outside her window, cold and distant and eternal. And somewhere in the vastness of space, the galaxy slowly began to learn a new lesson about the quiet creatures from the little blue planet. They were not to be hunted. They were not to be underestimated. They were human. And they always fought back.